So in today's video, I'm going to showcase all the different weapon types and play styles that they offer here inside of RuneScape Dragonwilds. If you are planning for a certain type, I'm going to show you guys the play style so you know the strengths and weaknesses and what type of situations that this weapon specifically pertains to and works really well in, and also how to utilize all of them to your advantage. Alrighty, so diving right in, starting us off with the first one, let's talk about the bronze dagger. As you guys can see here, the bronze dagger does 20 to 50 damage. You've got a 7 attack combo, which I'll show you that in action here in a second. And now testing out the dagger on some training dummies here to just kind of gauge its overall, damage that it can provide. Again, remember it is a 7-hit combo, and obviously the attack speed is very fast, so it's not going to be the heaviest hitting weapon out there, but it will save you in a pinch when it comes to speed. So we're going to go ahead and hit this training dummy 7 different times. We've got 20. It kind of basically works itself all the way up to the finisher, which does currently for me hit at 51 damage, which again is really nice. Also, it's important to note that you can, because it is a one-handed weapon, you can pair it with a shield, which is really nice for survivability, providing that extra level of defense, and then also, the parry mechanic, so then you can get some bonus stamina back if you do happen to parry, and then daze the individual, parry them, and then you can start working in, fast with the blade. Also, with the special attack, which if you hit the middle mouse button, it does have a special attack, and it does kind of like this uppercut ability. You can do it over and over again. It does normally do more damage than your standard hit, as you can see here in the 20s, but it does consume more stamina because it is a heavy attack, and it does have a slight hesitation on the attack itself, which obviously can pose a risk according to what you're going up against. And now next up we have the bronze mace. The bronze mace is going to be an upgraded version of the club that you start off with, which is the stone club. Eventually you'll unlock the bone club, but the mace is going to be the better version of these two, obviously providing more damage, but it does have the exact same special attack. As you guys can see here in my hand, we've got the bronze mace. Now the damage is a little bit higher than the dagger per hit. Now keep in mind here that this is a 5 attack combo instead of the 7 with the dagger, and it does also have a special attack. Additionally, one thing I'd like to mention here is that the attack speed is a little bit slower than what you would get out of the dagger. It doesn't attack as fast, but I will state that it does pack a heavier punch when it comes to landing your hits on enemies. Checking out the damage here on a training dummy. If we go ahead and take a look at the single hits, you can see we're already hitting at 38 at the minimum, 40. We got a couple 50s. That last final also hit us with 85. So it's definitely hitting a lot harder than the daggers, but like I said, you do kind of have that trade-off there, adding a little bit of stagger effect, but it is a little bit slower when it comes to attack. For the overall finisher here, let's check it out. It kind of does like this twirl and this lunge, which again is really, really nice. You can again use it over and over again. We've got a 64, a 51, but you name it, that's essentially going to be the finishing move when it comes to the bronze mace in the game. Now, diving into what I personally believe is the best overall kind of like general use weapon in the game that I've currently discovered, and that is the bronze sword. Now, keep in mind, as we can see here, the damage is quite a bit lower from the mace itself. It does have a special attack, and it is also on a 5 attack combo, very similar to the bronze mace compared to the 7 attack combo with the daggers. But either way here, you can see that the attack speed is a lot faster than the mace, not quite as fast as the daggers in my opinion when it comes to your combos, but I will state that it swings a lot lighter, it hits a lot lighter, and you can feel that when you hit an actual enemy. And then on top of that here, it's obviously going to do a little bit more damage. Now again, you are sacrificing that stagger effect, so you don't get that stagger effect with utilizing the sword like you do with something like the mace. But either way here, checking out its individual damage, the one shot you can see here is hitting the minimum 31, 31, 37, 42. The final is finishing off at 56 on that last one. But again, you get the idea here when it comes to swinging it. It's just your standard sword that you would see in other games. And then as far as the finisher goes here, he kind of does like this lunge, like this lunge attack, stabby. So if we go ahead and show you here, you can kind of see that it kind of does like a lunge attack And you can use it over and over again. I personally think it's just the generalized best weapon overall, because again, you can pair it with a shield, which I think is really nice for the parry slash defensive aspect, along with having a decent amount of attack outgoing damage. And now moving on to our heavy hitters that we have in the game, starting us off with the Bronze Warhammer. As you guys can see here, it is our first two-handed weapon that we currently have, and this thing is a monster. As you can see, the damage is drastically increasing here from 52 now being the minimum all the way up to 81 damage. The attack combo also drops down to 4 attacks here, which again is really nice. I'll show you that. And it also does have a special ability. When it comes to the Bronze Warhammer, you're going to see right off the bat, even though it is a 3-attack combo, it takes a lot to swing this bad boy. Not only does it consume a megaton of stamina, but on top of that, it is very, very slow. You're not going to hit an enemy very fast in a given fight. However, with that being said, it does have a massive positive trade-off with it being super slow of hitting really, really hard, and has a huge AoE staggering effect. On the final third hit here, when your guy slams it down on the ground, it does actually stagger and hit more than one enemy around you. Not only that, the stagger that it actually provides on smaller enemies, it can actually throw them completely on the ground and then making them have to, slowly stand back up, obviously, to get back into the fight. Same thing goes for bosses. It works very well for staggering bosses if you time your attacks, because otherwise you're leaving yourself open and vulnerable for the boss to attack you back. So make sure you're timing them accordingly. And now testing it out on the dummy here, we can check and see how much damage it does on the first hit. 52, we've got 52, a 65 that time, and then we've got 100, over 100 damage here on that final blow. And then when it comes to the overall special attack, it also does another ground slam, but this one takes a little bit longer to kind of build up to do. But again, it's just a really awesome, tool that you can utilize at your disposal when it comes to several of those goblins coming to raid your base. You can then time it just right. Once they get right up on you, you're slamming the ground, knocking a couple of them backwards or on their butt even, and then obviously buying you some time to either swap to a different weapon or continue to do your next individual swing or ground slam in order to finish them off. And now moving on to another heavy hitter, and that brings us to the Bronze Greatsword. Obviously, as you can expect from a Greatsword, it is another two-handed weapon, and just like with the Warhammer, one of the downsides with two-handed weapons is, you probably already guessed it, you can't use a shield, right? So you kind of sacrifice a little bit of the defense and parry mechanic, in the game by utilizing a two-handed weapon. However, the trade-off, as you can see here, just like with the Warhammer, it does a considerable amount more damage than the one-handed weapons do. So this one here for the Greatsword is 42 at a minimum, all the way up to 73 damage. It does have a 4-attack combo, just like with the Warhammer, so it's less than what you'll get with the 5-attack or even the 7-attack combo with some of the other one-handed weapons. And honestly, this is probably my favorite specialty move out of all the weapon types in the game, so we'll show you that in a second. But first, let's take a look at it in action here with some combat. All right, you can swing it back and forth, left and right, very similar to what you would expect a real-life, greatsword or a two-handed greatsword to actually function like. Again, you have a little bit of a spin at the very end of the animation for the 4-hit combo, which I do think is pretty cool. I do like that. However, for me, where the special sauce or the chef's kiss is the special attack and how it looks. It reminds me a lot of like the whirlwind ability from League of Legends. So if you go ahead and hit the middle mouse button, your guy kind of does like this whirlwind ability, standing on like probably what I would assume it's heel and toe, and just doing like this massive whirlwind spin. What's really cool about this, as you can see in this footage, you can use it to your advantage with a group of enemies, like these goblins that come to raid your base or being hunted. You can literally just continuously spin over and over again if you have the amount of stamina, and it works very well and very efficient to clearing out mobs that are all grouped up together. Additionally, it is worth noting that it does take a considerable amount of stamina to swing it compared to like the standard single, one-handed sword. But it does feel very impactful when you do make contact with an enemy compared to the one-handed sword. When it comes to showcasing it on the dummy here, let's take a look at its single attacks. We've got 42, 42, 59, and then its final there was 73. We'll do another one and see what we can get. There we go, 91, not too bad. Let's check out its finisher move as well. Maybe I can try to go right in between them, see if I can hit both dummies. Yeah, there you go. You can see it's got a pretty wide range. So you can see both times here we're hitting both of them. Let's back up just a little bit, see if I can hit them again together. If you get it properly placed, that's a pretty wide attack. That's probably about as far as you can get when it comes to the Greatsword. And that's going to complete our melee weapons section. Moving on here to some of the range weapons here that we've got unlocked, and that brings us to the 2 bows. So starting off with the first one, the short bow. The short bow, as you guys can see here, it does times 2.8 arrow damage. The long bow, as we can see here, does the same x 2.8 arrow damage, but it also has a modifier here for 28 damage. Now, the 2 main differences we have for the short bow and long bow, I'm going to show you some gameplay here to kind of give you an idea. The short bow shoots a lot faster, right? The draw when you pull it back is a lot quicker and shorter, I guess I should say, than the long bow. The long bow takes you a considerable more amount of time to pull it back. However, the trade-off between the 2 is the short bow will do less damage than the long bow, right? So you're going to want to try to probably pull your long bow out for, you know, sniper type shots compared to like up close and personal in your face. Same thing goes for the next point, and that is hip fire. The short bow actually has the ability to just hip fire at the cuff. You can just constantly spam it, and it does have a combo, you know, like, you know, flipping around and twirling around, you know, vibe to it, which again, I think looks really cool. It allows you to get off a lot of shots really, really quick. They're not 100% accurate. Sometimes they can miss, you know, compared to like a more steady shot, but it does come in handy if somebody is bum rushing you, for instance, you know, in melee combat, you're not prepared. You can kind of pop off a couple of those shots while still, like, you know, backing yourself up and then intentionally rolling or doing whatever you need to do to put more distance between you and that melee user. However, the longbow does not have that. With the longbow, you don't have the ability to hip fire off the cuff. You do have to actually steady and aim your shots every single time in order to make sure that they're accurate. But with that being said, the longbow does provide more damage per hit than the short bow, and on top of that, it seems to be a lot more accurate from further distances. As you guys can see here in the footage, I've got some crazy long distance shots where the drop was nowhere near as bad as the short bow. Alrighty, so then testing it out on some training dummies here, we've got the short bow. I'm going to go ahead and pull it back. Watch how fast and quick it is. We go ahead and pull it back. It's already at full draw. We can go ahead and shoot it at our target dummy here. You can see a couple of the damage numbers. We've got 47. Let's pop off another one. We've got another 47 pretty consistently here. Another 47 as well. We can keep on going. 45, a little bit less. The other really cool thing is going to be the little backwards trick that you can see from the hip fire. So if you go ahead and just kind of click on this here, I'm going to leave my cursor exactly where it is without moving it or adjusting it any. So you got 31 there on the little quick hip fire. It does less damage than the focused shot, which you would imagine. And then if we swap over to the longbow now, which you can kind of see if I stand sideways here, if I swap between the two, you can kind of see obviously one's longer and bigger than the other one. So we're going to go ahead and come back here as well. And at this point, I'm going to show you guys how long it takes to do the draw. So a considerable amount before we actually get a full steady shot. So you can see here, it's got a little bit longer draw time. The damage does increase considerably though, from 45 damage, I think is what it was, over to the 70 damage per shot. And then testing it at a longer distance to kind of show you what the drop and what I mean by more accurate. This is the long bow. We're just going to aim it here. Hit the target. Obviously it still hits that dummy at 70 damage from this distance. If we leave it exactly where it is, we swap to the short bow, we zoom back in, not moving our cursor whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead and pull it back. You will see the drop off considerably. I am still aiming at the exact same spot, and even at full draw, I am not hitting the dummy whatsoever. So you get an idea of the drop off. So if I kind of want to hit this, I'm going to pull it up just a little bit, actually considerably higher than where my training dummy is, a little too high. Come back down, and you'll see there it is. Now we're finally hitting them, and we are, like you can see here, a lot higher than the actual target is, utilizing the short bow compared to the long bow. And now diving into the oak battle staff. In your inventory, if we select the air runes, as you can see here, this will then give us the ability to use air abilities. You do have a air combo by just utilizing your light attacks in succession, so over and over and over again. This one here, in my opinion, does hit a lot harder on its initial hit, so it does more damage, but it does not provide any sort of damage over time effect like the fire runes do. The air runes are more centered centered around doing more initial damage per hit and also adding a little bit of survivability. If you hold the right mouse button, it will then actually do a AoE blast around you, kind of like force pushing if any enemies are in your face, pushing them away from you, and then kind of stunning them for a split second, sometimes even throwing them onto the ground, which then gives you time to put distance between you and that target to continue applying damage. As for the fire runes, fire is more about doing less damage on the initial hit, but damage over time by causing the burning effect on your target. Additionally, when it comes to utilizing attacks in succession, so like, doing your light attacks over and over and over again and building up the combo, it does once again create a large amount of AoE damage. The initial hit might not be as much as the air runes, but it does do a considerable amount of AoE on the ground, so you can take out larger amounts or a larger group of enemies in a shorter span of time. Additionally, it's important to note that if you hold down the right mouse button, it does more of a fire breath ability, and not really any sort of defensive or protective type spells like the air runes do. So it's basically just two different playstyles according to whichever you prefer is going to determine on which runes that you should use. In survivors, that's going to be a wrap on the weapons inside of RuneScape Dragonwilds. Now, I do know that there are actually unique weapons throughout the game that you can discover from solving puzzles, doing individual things, or specific tasks throughout the world, and as I start to collect those or collect them all, I will be doing another more advanced weapon guide going over those and their use cases and such at a later time, so be sure to subscribe here on the channel so you don't miss out on that one. And with that being said, if you guys are building a base or just starting your adventure here in RuneScape Dragonwilds, be sure to check out either my base building guide where I go over everything the game has to offer for building, or the 10 tips that I wish I knew sooner video as it goes over everything you need to know to get an awesome start.